Now, how would you feel about getting in a driverless car? And more importantly, who'd be to blame if you had an accident? Well, according to a joint report from the UK legal review bodies, the company behind the driving system should be held responsible if, for instance, the vehicle ran someone over or ran a red light. They say the person in the driving seat should have immunity from a range of traffic offences. Well, we spoke to Neil Greig, the Policy and Research Director for the road safety charity I.A.M RoadSmart. So what have you made of today's report into driverless cars?
Well, today's report is important because for once the Law Commission of Scotland are trying to be ahead of the game. They're trying to get new laws in place before we have a road safety problem. The problem they've been looking at is driverless cars. There's no real law on that at the moment, and the report today sets out a really accurate and detailed framework of the laws we're going to need if we're going to see driverless cars on the roads of Scotland.
And when do you think we might actually see driverless cars, on our roads and our streets?
Well, I think that's still some time away. Some analysts were hoping we might have them by now in 2022, but that's not as close as that. We're seeing a lot of automated cars and more automated features on vehicles, but the kind of vehicle we're talking about here is just really like you're going to be a passenger rather than a driver. It's a completely driverless vehicle, and that's still, I would say, at least 10 years away.
And what do you think about this idea of, the human in the car not being held responsible for any accidents, running a red light, or, running someone over, for instance?
Well, I think you have to remember that this is a kind of car we haven't really seen yet. Some people might have seen the Google car, which is being tested in America, and that doesn't have a steering wheel. You are basically the passenger in that car. And of course, if you can't do anything to avoid a crash, then you shouldn't be held responsible. So the Law Commission have said today that they think that by clarifying the law in advance, by making it clear that you as the passenger are not responsible, that will make people feel safer in these vehicles and might actually attract people into these vehicles more quickly. And I think they're probably right. I think, I wouldn't want to get into a vehicle that I couldn't control, knowing that if I did hit something or was speeding or something, which it shouldn't do, of course, I would be held responsible. So the people making these vehicles are going to have to be responsible, so they're going to have to make them as safe as possible.
Well, will companies, though, not have to be very clear about what constitutes a driverless car, though? Because I'm sure there's going to be all sorts of hybrids.
Well, that is the problem. It's the transition to that, if you like, the ultimate driverless car where there's no steering wheel and you have no control and you're just a passenger. We're starting to see that transition now, and we've already seen some really bad crashes involving things like Teslas. I mean, Tesla market their automatic driving system as autopilot, they call it. And there have been instances where people have been watching movies or sitting in the back of the Tesla. They've beaten the system because the system does still require human input, but they've ended up crashing. So they think they were driving an autonomous car. They're not. There are no autonomous cars available at the moment in Scotland. You can't buy one. But in the future there will be. And when they are, then the manufacturers will have to get it absolutely right. And they're struggling because, although we humans are not always the best drivers, we've got fantastic eyes, fantastic ears, we've got experience, we can predict things that are going to happen, we can deal with the weather, with the unexpected, and they've got to feature all that in their cars in the future.
Well, Neil, speaking for myself, I am a fantastic driver, but do you believe in this technology? Do you like the idea of it?
I think a lot of, particularly members of the I.A.M who I represent, like driving. A lot of people do still like driving, but having said that, a lot of people don't. And if you're sitting stuck on the M8 every day, a driverless car where you can get on with your emails, get on with your work, treat it almost like a train, if you like, is probably quite attractive. So I think some people will find this a good move. Others won't want to give up that control. But at least we now know that if this goes through, the laws will be in place. If you're sitting in the car, if you have no control of the car, you're getting on with watching movies or doing your emails, you will not be responsible if that car goes wrong.